Hello.
Hello, hello.
I was dancing to the jazzy music again.
I was going to, and then I thought that Rufus gets a bit sort of like jumpy when I start moving around. So I decided not to today.
As the star of the show, he probably needs to be kept as chill as possible.
He does. He does need to be kept chill. He seems wholly uninterested in the whole thing, to be honest. So we just got to hope that no one. We just got to hope that no one knocks on the doorbell in the next, hour. Otherwise, I'll be like that person. Do you remember during COVID when that guy was being interviewed and that little child came running in? Be like that scenario.
Yeah, I loved it.
All right. We're back again for episode 2 of The Perfect Pair.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yes, another exciting installment of our webinar. I think we had some fairly good comments about the first one, didn't we? Like fractional COOs being the WD-40 of a business. I thought that was a good one. That one seems to have got picked up on quite a lot.
Yeah, I like that. Well, I'll make sure I add it in to more things when I chat about. So shall we tell, if anyone's joining us for the first time, shall we give a little intro to what Perfect Pair is and who we are, actually, for anyone who doesn't know us?
Yes. Shall we? Do you want to introduce yourself and then I can go?
Yeah, absolutely. So hi, everyone. For those of you that don't know me, I am Millie Barker. I'm a fractional COO. So fractional COO, as we covered in episode 1, is a part-time COO, because that's what fractional means, just part-time. So it means that I work with a lot of different companies as their COO or as their business coach. And I help companies to write a strategy and then to operationalize that strategy. So to make sure that they are running as efficiently as possible, which is more important now than ever, with lots and lots of limits on funding and very difficult runways. I help companies make sure that all of the things that they're doing are pushing them towards their most important goals so that they can grow a business in a really sustainable and efficient way. And I do that through my company, Pay As You Go COO.
Perfect. Okay, and yeah, hello everyone. I am Caroline Sumners. I am a fractional CMO, and I am a fractional CMO via my business, carolinesumners.com. Just me. So, like Millie said, in terms of a fractional COO, a CMO is basically, or fractional one, is someone that helps to set the marketing or drives the marketing strategy in a business from a top level perspective, helps set priorities, identify target audience, stuff like that, and ultimately make sure that the implementation of the marketing plan goes smoothly, but also works very closely. And actually, the more we talk about this, Millie, I think the person that this CMO needs to work most closely with is the COO. I know everyone always pairs CMOs with the salespeople, but actually, I think the COO and CMO actually, some of the things overlap so much because of things like user experience, customer service, and all of that. I feel like the two really go together. Often CMOs don't implement, but I kind of use the term interchangeably with marketing director, because a lot of the time when you're working with startups or scale-ups, they just don't have the level of resource available for a CMO to just sit there going strategy, right? Yes, you've got to do that and have that high level view, but you've also got to be able to get down there in the weeds and get it done and know when it's appropriate to hire a person for a specialism, or when it's appropriate to hire a person or outsource something to a specialist agency or something. So although CMOs don't typically implement, I do, because otherwise a lot of my clients I wouldn't be working with, so that's what we do. And Perfect Pair is a discussion really about, obviously there's all these growing tools around how you can shortcut different things in your business, but our belief as a COO and a CMO is that you actually need experts in those particular fields in order to get those tools to work at their best, to get the business working as efficiently as possible. So in each episode, we are, I heard a weird sound then. I don't know what's going on. In this episode, we're sort of talking about how do you use a tool most effectively, partnering it with an expert. And so that's what we're doing. And last episode, we covered operations, and today we're covering marketing.
I'm very excited for this session because Caroline hasn't told me which tool she's going to be talking about. For me, it was obvious. Obviously, I was going to talk about Asana. Anyone that's ever met me and seen me wearing my Asana socks would not be surprised by that. But Caroline has a whole host of different tools, and I'm so excited to see which one you pick.
Well, okay, so I'm going to preface the whole thing with, I actually really struggled with this. Really, really struggled with one tool. And because, you know, different aspects of the marketing mix require different tools, and so it's like, well, how do you just pick one, right? And so in the end, I have actually not come down on one tool, but a email marketing tool. I'm saying each business needs an email marketing tool, whether that be HubSpot, whether that be ConvertKit if you're smaller, whether that be Drip if you're an e-commerce business. Because I thought about ultimately, I couldn't decide on one because it does depend on the type of business you are, right? So if you're an e-commerce business, you're naturally going to want an email marketing tool that will pick up abandoned cart, will pick up repeat purchase, all of that. What have people been browsing? Can we do upsell, whatever, right? And you don't need that if you're a service business, but what you need with a service business is you need a tool where you can set up rules and you set up sequences and you can have a good welcome series and things like that. So it was impossible to choose one, but so I've settled on email marketing tool because it's my fundamental belief that a central to any marketing strategy is direct communication with your clients. And if you're not implementing an email marketing strategy within your business, then you're missing a massive gap in your strategy. So that's how I decided.
Oh, this is fascinating. It's really interesting because I you know, when I first came to start talking with you about marketing for Pay-to-Go COO, I don't know if you remember back to the dusty days of I don't know what I'm doing, whereas now we're really clear on what I'm doing phase. But I came first and said, I think I need maybe an SEO strategy. And we had a conversation that said, no, you don't, because no one's Googling fractional COO. What you're doing is trying to explain to people what a fractional COO is and why one can be beneficial for a business. And one of the first things that we looked at instead was content marketing and email-based marketing. And now having a newsletter that has almost 500 subscribers, I feel like I really get the value of being inside someone's inbox and being able to directly communicate with them and the value that you can have from that. So this is super, super interesting. So I think there's a lot of companies that don't think about email marketing first. They think about, oh, you have to have an SEO strategy. But as you've proven, like, yes, you do have to have an SEO strategy, but it's not the biggest piece of the puzzle for a lot of companies.
Well, I think the issue is with marketing, especially, there's a lot of almost like jargon thrown around quite a lot. And it's like, oh, it's SEO, it's social, it's this different things. And ultimately, those different things are used at different stages of your customer journey, right? And so, yes, of course, you ultimately need an SEO strategy, right? You need to think about what people are searching for, how they're searching. When they get to your website, what are they finding?
Mm-hmm.
But what we worked on, and what I always work on with clients, is we almost work backwards. Because if you start with your traffic acquisition strategy, of which SEO is, and you're really focusing all your attention up front on, I've got to get traffic. So maybe you work on SEO, which is obviously a longer term approach than if you're doing paid ads. If you're focusing on that, but you haven't fixed all the gaps upstream in your model, you're wasting your time to start with. So actually, and people might disagree with me, but you've got to go do that at the end, right? You've got to make sure that you've got in place. Well, if I get someone to my website, what am I going to do with them? Because if you haven't got a lead capture in place, and if you haven't then got a way to nurture those people, what was the point, right? Because we all know that you're not going to someone's not going to land on your website and immediately say, oh yes, I'm going to purchase from them, or yes, I want to do that. Now, maybe once in a while that will happen, but psychology isn't like that. And so people want to see more of what you're about, and they want to know what you stand for, what your values are, and do you know what you're talking about. And so email is the perfect way to have that personal one-to-one relationship with a potential customer or a potential client. It's why, e-commerce businesses do this well generally. And, they have a lot of more opportunity in some ways to do it, because they can say, 10% off your purchase, or, free this, free that. And people happily give over their email addresses. And then, you might often get a pretty burdensome email sequence that suddenly appears in your inbox, and they just won't go away. So you do have to sort of balance it. But what was the point of spending all the time on SEO, on a paid ad, on other ways to get them to your website, and then I've got nothing I can't do anything with them? And so that's why, yes, email marketing, let's go with that. And then also, more importantly, I think businesses rely maybe a little bit too much on the relationship of the audience within their social platforms. And that always worries me a lot, because I really feel like you need to own your own customer relationships, because at any opportunity, the platforms don't care. They will block. You might say something wrong one day, and they've decided we're gonna take down your profile. If you've got no email list and no way of communicating with your clients, potential clients existing, you've got nothing. Your business is gone if you're just relying on social media. So, for many reasons, it's the most important tool, I think.
That's super, super interesting. I think if I remember correctly, you described it to me as, think about a bricks and mortar store. Like, say you had a restaurant or something, and you invited a load of customers over, but you had nothing inside. You'd be burning those customers. So it wouldn't even just be a waste of time. It would actually be a negative consequence for your business, because you've lost all the low-hanging fruit that were willing to come in and check you out. And now it actually becomes harder for you to continue marketing your business, because you've burnt those relationships by not being prepared to nurture them and not having a consideration for how you bring them along that journey.
Yeah, yourself, right? If you're searching for something, and a while ago, I was, in a fit of, I don't know what, I was searching for a personal trainer. I know, I was obviously having a funny 5 minutes.
Anyway. You were watching the Olympics and you've decided you're going to be a gymnast, because that's exactly what I've been in the last couple of weeks.
No, I've decided I'm going to be a swimmer, even though I'm probably about 20 years too old. But anyway, I was searching for a personal trainer, and someone had been recommended to me, and I looked up the website, and I filled out the form on their website, and nothing happened. Nothing. Not a response to say, not even an email sort of attached to the form to say, thank you very much. I had nothing. And, at this time I was quite keen on having a personal trainer. So I thought, I'm going to look on his social profiles, which I did. And then I messaged him on there on Instagram and got a response. And he was like, oh yeah, none of the forms work on my website.
You're
you can imagine,
but maybe you're looking for a CMO.
basics. But the point being that most times I don't give it a second time. I don't give it a second chance. And most people don't, right? Unless they're absolutely desperate to work with you. They fill out the form, and if they don't hear from you within minutes, actually, which is why you need an autoresponder on there, triggered by your email marketing system, saying, thanks very much. I'll, just to say, I know that I've got your inquiry. I'll get back to you within 24 hours, whatever it is. That's all people want a lot of the time, is the initial. At least they know that it's not gone into a hole, and you're left guessing, are you going to hear from the person? So I think that it's just some such basic things that people can do in order to ensure that they're not captured. You've done all the hard work of getting someone to your website, and then you're not following up and you're not nurturing it. One of my favorite phrases, and I'm pretty certain I've said this to you, because I say it all the time, I'm like a broken record. It's like going on a date and then the next week, like it's ghosting, right? Or the next thing is, if you haven't got an email nurture sequence in place, introducing yourself, here I am, this is what I'm all about, but then you suddenly phone them up because you have got yourself in order. Do you want to buy this?
Yeah.
It's like suddenly going from on a date to, hey, do you want to marry me? I mean, we all know what freaks that would, we'd be thinking. So it's just such a fundamental part of the marketing strategy.
Yeah.
Ongoing communication. And that was, that's why I'm a bit like you are about Asana email.
Yeah. And I know that you probably, maybe you do this, but like, I can't go into a business without thinking, what's your revenue model? How are you organizing your strategy? Like, tell me all these different things. Do you find as a CMO, when you get emails from people and you can see that it's a bad email and you think your email nurturing funnel is not working, like I can see that you've chosen a tool and I can see that you're thinking about email marketing and that you've got some systems in place, but actually you could really benefit from some advice to make sure that you're using this properly, because at the moment it seems like perhaps you're paying for a subscription that isn't actually delivering you a good customer experience.
Yes, exactly. So, as you have fun just on a day-to-day basis with Asana, I have fun filling out forms on websites.
We both really need to get out more.
I mean, it's such a sad existence I live, but
Yes, I love it.
well, firstly, this is how ridiculous it's got. I look at the bottom of the email to see if I can guess the email tool that it is.
Ooh.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, so I can normally tell which one it is, unless it's one of the sort of a lesser, a less popular one. I can typically tell which one it is. I'm like, okay, they've got that, so I know roughly how much they're paying or the minimum cost that they're paying. So that's the first thing.
So nerdy, and I love it so much.
I know, it's ridiculous. And then I get, well, firstly, I wait to see if I get an initial welcome email, and then I wait to see if I get any follow-ups to that, or do I just get a one-off? And even after the initial welcome series, well, what's the welcome series telling me to do, asking me to do? Is it directing me towards content? Is it telling me about the person, about the business, about the brand? Has it got call to actions in it? What's it trying to get me to do? How long does that go on for? And then if I don't take any action, what happens? Does it just all go quiet? Do I then get a follow-up email in about 30 days? Do I actually get retargeted ads appearing if it's for a product, which can happen? So what are they doing? This is how I spend my fun times, Millie.
This is actually fun times, because I feel like just in that last sentence, I learned so much about things that I don't see the inner workings of normally. Like, as a consumer and also a business owner, I feel like I get to see often both sides of the table of things, but I don't ever really think about that journey of, especially like email marketing into retargeting, into all of these different touch points. And, me not, I know enough about marketing to be able to get started, but I don't know enough about marketing myself to be able to be good at it. It's not my functional area of expertise. My functional area of expertise is helping people get shit done. But I would never think about those things, and until I have conversations with you about them, I would never think that was part of a good marketing journey. So I feel like even in just that last sentence, I'm like, oh, should I be doing some of those things? I've got email marketing, like, yeah, oh, wow.
I mean, maybe if you get to the point where, you've built your email strategy, you can start with something simple, like, fundamentally, if anybody listening has got a form of any sort on their website and they don't have a welcome series attached to it, that's the first thing to do. You have?
No, I have forms on my website, but I definitely don't have a proper welcome series attached to it. I'm so ashamed.
You have on your course, your
I
operational
have
efficiency.
an email course that people can sign up to do 28 days to reach operational efficiency, but I don't have a like, thank you for sending me a message, and like this is what's going to happen next. This is how you can book a call for anyone that just fills in a form on my website.
Well, firstly, how have we missed that? And that'll be because I don't have an Asana process for it. So
That's the key.
so
This is why CMOs should work with COOs all the
yeah,
time.
there we go, you see. So that's the first thing. That's the first thing to get done. And then the second thing is you can start to when people, the beauty of a marketing tool is that you can see what links what people have clicked. You can see what they're interested in. And that's when you start to segment down what you then send as a follow-up, right? Now, different tools can do different things, something like ActiveCampaign and others. You can build what's called dynamic content. So you can say, I've got this one email, but if this person's had this behavior or whatever, send them this, but they haven't, then you send them that. And it replaces text blocks within it, right?
That's cool.
Yeah. So you don't have to be having like multiple workflows, but you've got to think about the behavior that you're triggering, what you want them to do, what's the next steps, and what are you going to send as a result? Because you don't really want to just be sending in an ideal world, you would be sending a highly segmented nurturing campaigns, right? Where this person's had this behavior, so you send them this. They've had this behavior or no behavior at all, you send them this. And then if after 90 days or so they haven't opened any emails, they haven't clicked any emails, you ask them if they still want to subscribe and you unsubscribe them, because you've got to keep your email list healthy, right? And people fear unsubscribed, but actually if people aren't opening your emails and they're not reading them and they're not clicking on them, they're not going to buy from you because they don't know who you are, right? So you don't just want an email list of whatever for the sake of it. You want high open rates, but you also want engagement. So that's why you need to sort of like be starting to check, what have people clicked on? What are they interested in? And those people that say clicked on an article about what a COO is, send them a follow-up, enter them into a segmented follow-up around, I know you're interested in what a COO can do for your business. Here's a bit more. Now, you don't want to make it so complex so that it becomes burdensome, but you've got to have your flows mapped out so you know what happens when and where. And as I said, on the whole, e-commerce businesses do it quite well. And you can see the patterns, right? Like yesterday, not just for giggles, I put something in a shopping basket I was looking at buying a t-shirt and then thought, you don't need another t-shirt. This morning, so I abandoned the basket, right? I just left it. But I've clearly bought something from them before. So this morning I had your basket's still there. It's still waiting, right? Can they entice me? And I've just had another one saying, it's going away, might have sold. So there's different things that you can do. Now, you either respond to those positively or you respond to them negatively. But that's the beauty of what a good email marketing system can do for your business. You can move people further along their buying cycle by nurturing them, sending them appropriate content, really thinking about what they're reading, what they're looking at, what they might be interested in, and then sending them different content as a result.
It's super interesting to think about the later stages of the email marketing journey, just in the same way that you think about, the later stages of any kind of content marketing journey, that we understand quite easily posting onto LinkedIn or posting onto any other kind of social media. But then what next? Like, how are you engaging with people who are responding? And I think what's really interesting for me about what you were just saying is about all of the data that's in the back end of an email marketing system. Like, I wouldn't know necessarily where to start with that. Like, I know that I understand my open rates for my newsletter, and I'm really proud of the fact I think I get about 70% open rate, but I've actually never looked into what people are clicking on, and I've never thought, what can I follow them up with after that? And I think it's partly just overwhelm. It's the complete lack of time to be able to do those things, because it's not necessarily just unique to a service business, because really every business is out there delivering for its customers as the number one priority. But for me, the number one priority every single day is, how do I get done what my customers need, what my clients need? And then I think about, how do I sort out my own business? And that's probably like late in the afternoon when I'm horizontal on the sofa with a laptop under my chin trying to get the last few things done. And I don't think about, just don't have the capacity to do that. And I think for me, the benefit of working with someone like you, who can say, right, here's the data, and how to read it. And same way, like, I could read a spreadsheet like the Matrix. I can't read the data in an email marketing system like the Matrix and say what I need to do next. And I think that's maybe where I don't get as much value as I could from an email marketing tool, is because I've set the campaigns up and I've sent them out, but I don't know the what next. And the tool doesn't teach me that, because it's getting my subscription anyway. It's getting my revenue from me just setting those up and sending it.
Yeah. And not all tools are created equal. Let's say that, right? So I think I said at the outset, I didn't have just one, because it depends on the stage of your business you're at. What type of business, I think the gold standard is HubSpot, right? But to invest in the full sort of HubSpot, and yes, they've got starter packages and stuff like that, which smaller businesses can use, but at a much more reasonable price, but they limit what it can do. But the wealth of data that you can get from HubSpot in a fairly easy to use manner is brilliant, right? But not every business can have that. So then it's like, well, what can I use instead, and where should I look, and what's the best tool to have? But I would encourage, yes, I think that's partly, so many people, it's just human nature. We work on the getting it done, but we don't work on the reflection time. And actually, that's part of the role of a CMO, is to say, well, hang on a minute. Is that working? What's going on? Look at the bigger picture. And, marketeers are somewhat obsessed, to our detriment a lot of the time, with attribution, i.e., where has that click resulted in? Has click X resulted in behavior Y? But the reality is that, yes, the clicks and the links, that will give you I approach it as, it will give you an idea of the content and the topics that people are interested in. The call to action, the topic itself was interesting enough for them to explore more. But I like to look at it in the way of, it's the whole, it's everything that they're looking at, it's everything you're putting out, and not be so obsessed with attribution that we're going, it was that particular LinkedIn post that did it, right? It's the sum of all the parts together that will, and ultimately the thing to measure is, are you getting more calls? Are you getting more sales? Are you getting more business? Is your pipeline growing? And yes, you've got to be happy with what you're putting into particular tactics in terms of money, but if ultimately it's moving the dial, then I'm good with that.
That's super interesting. And I think, I talk to a lot of early stage founders, even, to be honest, later stage founders, because we have such an issue with an attention economy of, capturing your customers and convincing them that your tool is the best thing or your service is the best thing. And I speak to a lot of people who are really burning out because they're putting so much in. And I see this myself. Last week, I felt like I was doing so much in the way of content marketing, and I was writing, and I was super diligent. I was like taking off my to-do list. And I'm just a bit burnt out by all of the things that I've got to give to build this as a business. Like, how do I know which one of those things, if I could only do one of them, I should be doing? And I think that's where I've really struggled with my own marketing. And I could see the value of working with someone who can understand the signals in that and say, well, this is what this means. Do you see a lot of the founders that you work with having similar problems, that they feel like they're doing a lot, but they're not getting anywhere? They're treading water, they're running on a treadmill, on a, whatever the analogy is that we want to use, of like putting loads of effort in and not actually moving forward.
Yeah, I think so. I think often the reality is that a lot of the time there is a tendency to have a lot of tactics, but not sort of an actual strategy, right? And so you'll often be like, well, I'm doing social media and I'm doing this and I'm doing that, but it's not sort of like really, are we moving, or is that all going towards the same goal, right? And being focused on that. And I think also there is often 9 times out of 10, there's always a gap in the process, always, no matter where it is, right? And it could be that they've got the whole journey, sorted out in terms of engagement, in terms of like converting people to, potentially to leads. They've got a good, cool discovery process, whatever, but they're simply not getting enough traffic to the web, to their, wherever the point is that they want it to be at, or they're doing all the work on getting traffic, and yet they're losing them somewhere up the journey because they haven't thought through, well, if I actually get people to the website, what's going to happen? And actually, once I've got people sold, do I have an upsell? Do I have a downsell? If they're not ready for the core thing that I want to sell, what do I do when I've finished working with them? What's the review process? What's the method for gathering a testimonial? What's the method for referral? What's the method for sort of going back to the beginning? So if you can take someone all the way through, is that it? Or can you sell them something else? Or is your service just a one and done? Which sometimes it is, right? But can you engage them in a referral process? So there's normally something missing from the process, which is why founders feel like it's not working. Or the other thing is there's a lot of going on at each stage of the customer journey, and actually it's often better to just do one thing well. Yes, of course, you might want to be doing I'll say social media as an example. You might want to be doing all these different platforms, but if you physically haven't got the resource, financially, physically, you haven't got the content to be putting it out there, my belief is it's better to sort of focus on one platform and do it really well before you branch out and do another one. And the one you focus on is not the one that you like the best, it's the one that your customers like the best, and the one where your customers are, right?
Yeah, and that's so hard. I know I really struggled with that when I was starting to think about marketing pay-as-you-go COO, because I don't like social media at all. I don't use it personally. I am very happy below the parapet at home in my sweatpants, making spreadsheets look wonderful. And the idea of going out and saying, hey, look at me, I'm amazing, check this out. It's like, oh, I'm too British for this situation. But really doubling down on what I've been doing on LinkedIn, I think has been really beneficial to I started trying to do things on Instagram. So it's like, people, founders that I'm approaching, they're people too, and they're going to be on social media as a human as well as a business owner. But it was just too much. And being able to double down onto what I was doing in LinkedIn, which was at your recommendation, to be able to focus into that has been, I think, really beneficial for my ability to feel like I'm being effective in the work that I'm doing, and that I'm not spread too thinly across all of these different things. And then that then made me feel like I had the capacity to add in email marketing, which is, directly into people's inboxes. It's much more proactive, reactive. Even if I'm posting the best content in the world on LinkedIn, I'm waiting for someone to come onto LinkedIn to look at it, whereas I'm actively going into their inboxes, into their laptops, into their phones, and saying, like, here's the things that I'm talking about, here's the stuff that I've worked on. And it feels like, even though it's a much smaller audience, I maybe get thousands of impressions on a LinkedIn post versus 500 or so subscribers, and a chunk of those are on LinkedIn. So if you think about just the email side of that, it's more targeted, but even though it feels smaller, it's probably more effective.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, if someone's going to sign up to your email list, they're probably further down the customer journey or the decision process than just someone that is in that, problem aware area of the, I hate to use the word funnel. But you brought up an interesting point about content, right? And I think and I think it's a good point to make, that you don't always have to be writing new content all the time, every week, right? You can use the same content. So say you've got a lovely thought out piece of content that you've used on LinkedIn and it's got great engagement on social platform. The chances are that your email subscribers want to see that as well. So just reuse the content. I mean, change the call to action slightly, cut it down if you want to, or extend it. And it doesn't matter if that person has read that already on your social profile. You know, the statistics used to be years ago, you know, when I was in marketing school, and it would be like, when I was doing one of my Chartered Institute of Marketing exams, it was like, you know, how many times does someone need to see an ad before they will, you know, before they will consider buying? You know, and this is back in the good old days of print, much more on print and less on digital, right? And it was something ridiculous, like 17 times or something, right? I can't even remember now. But that hasn't changed. People, just because there's more, in fact, arguably it's got worse, right? Just because you can get much more directly into someone's head and, you know, an inbox, doesn't mean that it's just a one and done. You've still got to repeat yourself. You've still got to have your content appearing in different areas, the same content appearing in different platforms, different mediums and stuff like that, because everybody learns, everybody takes in knowledge, everybody takes in information in different ways. And so if you've got an email on social, you've got a social post, maybe you've done it on video, you can transpose that video and put it into an email, right? But you only have to do it once. You then just need to repurpose your content and deliver it in different ways. But the importance of email is that it does get directly into the inbox. And I know that years ago it was like, oh, email is dead, it's all about social. I don't believe that at all. And you know how much stock you take yourself from reading emails. And, you know, people can do it in they can do it in the way that is better for them, right? And I feel like it's less open to the problems that social media has, right? And we all know what they are. I mean, God, we were discussing before we started the call, weren't we? How depressing everything is that's going on right now here in the UK. And a lot of that is, you know, it's not fueled by social media. Let me start with that. But my point is that all this stuff that there is going on social media moves away when you're on email, right? And so you're much more focused and you're much more kind of likely to grab attention, and that's what it's about.
That's super interesting. It's like you've hit the Venn diagram of someone's life. There's all these different intersecting elements, but the email inbox is the bit where a lot of the business elements intersect, or a lot of the like decision making elements intersect, and you're able to take it directly into that. So I'm conscious of time. We've got about, I think, like 6 minutes of the call left. Like I've got one really clear question that I think I even brought to you when we first started talking about email marketing for my business. It's like, right, so I'm a founder and I know that I want to do some email marketing. Where do I start? Do I get a tool? Do I get a fractional CMO? What comes first? Where do I start?
I would start with thinking about the journey that you want your customer to make, right? What are the different touch points? So how are you gonna, what's the hello? What's the thing that's going to, you know, then say, okay, you need to know more about me? What's the thing that's going to say, would you like to come for coffee? What's the, you know, think of it in that sort of like dating scenario, if you like, the steps that you would take and how are you going to take them in your business, right? So make sure so first of all, look at your customer journey. I would say, yes, you definitely need a tool. You absolutely 100% do. You can't effectively do email marketing from your email inbox, your transactional email inbox. You need a tool, but they're, as I said, they're not all created equal. There are many different ones that you can use, but, you know, with a few simple questions, I could help you figure out what you're going to use. Gone are the days where, I mean, there are some that offer a free platform still, right? Up to a certain number of subscribers. That's less so these days. I would say, you know, you can get a really good quality tool for £20 a month. I mean, I use one called ConvertKit. for myself. It's more than adequate for my business. Has all sorts of different features, from forms to workflows to rules, all sorts of stuff like that. And it's £22 a month, I think. So that's reasonable, right? It's reasonable. So yes, you definitely need a tool, but then you've got to think about, what action do I want someone to take if I've got their email address? And that's when you start from. Like, what am I trying to do? Am I trying to get them to book an appointment? Am I trying to get them to buy something? Am I trying to get them to visit a website again? You know, what is it, and what's going to drive that reaction?
That's super interesting. And I think the choice of different tools can be really difficult, because there's a SaaS for everything, and trying to find the right tool for you. Do you have any tips for starting to choose that tool? I know you said at the beginning of the call that there's certain tools that are better for certain kinds of businesses. Is there a tip that you could give people for looking at what the right tool is for them?
I mean, I was going to say Google it, but that's a bit overwhelming. But I mean, that's where I would say you need some expert help, to be honest, because even if it's like an hour, booking an hour with somebody, like a fractional CMO, even if it's just booking an hour and saying, this is what I want to do, we can get under the bonnet of what you need to do and what sort of tools you could consider. And then you can go off and have a look at a few. And, you know, a lot of that would be do with who's aside from the customer aspect of it, it's the internal aspect of it as well. Who's physically going to do the work? Who's physically going to be setting it all up? What sort of text, what sort of skills have they got? How can it be one of the simpler tools? Can it be more complex? What sort of interface? How do they work better, right? Because some are visual builders, some are not. You know, what's that person need from a business, you know, from a personal point of view as well? So it depends on a lot of things, but I would say within an hour for a startup or a small business, you could get a really good idea by spending an hour with somebody and sort of really determining what your needs are and where to start.
And it sounds to me like you'd save a lot of your own hours by having that hour-long conversation with a fractional expert. Because I think you don't know what you don't know, and it's really easy to be bombarded by so many different things. Like, I chose MailChimp for my email marketing tool, and as you know, I have many frustrations with MailChimp as an email marketing tool, but I'm like, do you know what? The cost is sunk, and I'm in there, and at some point I will have the capacity to change it. But right now, the idea of like breaking that process that I'm in, and I just cannot conceive of that right now.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing, right? You've got to be realistic about it. What you can afford, what you're already using, what's easier to do, and yeah, what's the cost to transition at some point? Because it's not the easiest. I've switched tools, and it's not once, and it's not the easiest thing to do, just because of all the different things you've got to make sure happen. So yeah. That's, I would say, just have a think about what you're trying to achieve. Where does it fit within the wider strategy? And seek advice, right? To shortcut the process, because you will become, as soon as you start looking, you know, you become bombarded with information and you just won't know where to go with it.
Yeah, I definitely felt that, as you say. I think that's a great way of talking about it, bombarded with the choice. And then I just ended up closing all the Google tabs and just thinking, do you know what, maybe I'm gonna just, I don't know, scroll Pinterest for a minute and just focus on something totally different instead. And that's not how I'm going to find customers for my business. Much as I'd like it to be.
Exactly. Well, hopefully that's been useful for people to know that we're, I say, probably cheating a little bit, but I think email marketing, by not naming one, but it was hopefully I explain why.
No, I definitely think so. I certainly learned some things, and you know, I'm already along the journey with email marketing. So I'm sure if there's people who are thinking about getting started, there's some super interesting insights there. And you know, if anyone does have any questions after the session, like Caroline's on LinkedIn, the slide,
absolutely,
on her business's page, so she's available to be contacted there. And then we have in 2 weeks' time, our third episode will be our first episode with a special guest, which is very exciting. I don't know if we've announced yet who is joining us.
I did in a post the other day. Maybe spoiler.
Very exciting. Well, I mean, you can
drum roll.
you going to say it? I don't know if we're going to say it.
Well, I mean, it's not a secret, is it?
No, I don't think
We're
so.
building him up now massively.
Yeah, he's going to really hate this.
He's going to be like, I'm not coming on anymore. Let's leave it till we announce it. Let's leave it till we announce it.
Okay, so we've given everyone some anticipation of who's joining us. It's going to be like an episode of Guess Who. Like, he hates the drum roll and he's clearly a man. And is he wearing a tie? I think that would be.
I don't think he'll be wearing a tie.
Well, it was. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. It's wonderful to see so many people joining us in the call. And yeah, as always, if you have any questions for either of us, please give us a shout. And next episode will be in 2 weeks, and we will see you then.
All right. Bye.
Bye.